Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Now, what's my brethren in the great city of Liverpool, England? And speaking of Liverpool, we got to show on this channel. We got to show massive love to the great Everton Football Club. Looking forward to the season on Saturday. I'm hyped. I'm hyped for it. But when we talk about Liverpool, when we talk about Everton, we talk about in boxing Tony Bellew. And Tony Bellew is an interesting subject right now because he was called out by Oleksandr Usyk when Oleksandr Usyk became the first undisputed champion in the four-belt era and the first undisputed cruiserweight champion since O'Neal Bell in 2007. Now, it is worth noting with Usyk that he has a chance. He's beaten every notable name in the cruiserweight division. He's beat every notable name right now in the cruiserweight division. He's beat them, and in most cases, beat them soundly. Gassiev, Huck, Glowacki, Breedis. You name it, he's beat them, and that's that. He won the World Boxing Series. The only notable name in that division that he hasn't beaten really comes in the form of Tony Bellew. Right now, we do know that Tony Bellew over the last 2 years he's been a pseudo heavyweight, a kind of a fake heavyweight fight. He went up to fight David Haye, and he beat David Haye twice. So he hasn't fought at cruiserweight since he won the WBC title at Goodison Park in 2016. But he said after that fight that he was the best cruiserweight in the world. And this fight for Usyk, if it comes about, it has a chance to make some serious history because there's only been two undisputed cruiserweight champions ever. There's O'Neal Bell, and then there's this man right here, Evander Holyfield. Those are the only two other undisputed cruiserweight champions in the history of boxing. And neither one of them, after they became undisputed cruiserweight champion, neither one of them defended all those belts once. Once they became undisputed, they immediately moved up to heavyweight. So he has a chance to be the first undisputed cruiserweight champion to actually defend the titles. And that's the kind of stuff that could cement yourself as the best fighter in the history of the weight class, I think at least, because nobody's done it before. Okay, and you're undisputed to begin with already, so you're already in elite company already. And now you're doing something that your other undisputed counterparts didn't do for whatever reason. So that's that. Now, the fight itself, there's a lot of rumors floating around. Eddie Hearn saying that it's going to happen on November the 10th, but obviously it's all hearsay until we see contracts, a date, a TV venue, and things are signed. But November the 10th is a date that's being thrown out there, and I think I'm going to say this. This might be a very unpopular opinion, and this might be an opinion that nobody else in boxing will have. So listen up to me and listen up to me very closely because I'm speaking from a place of being, first of all, I'm speaking from a place of being educated and actually having a mind and thinking for myself. Because a lot of times boxing fans and even a lot of boxing channels, they don't think for themselves. So on True School Sports, we're thinking for ourselves here. Now, we're not going to take anything away from Murat Gassiev. Murat Gassiev is a world-class fighter. He was the other best cruiserweight in the world when Usyk fought him. Let's not get it twisted. But I'll say this. Gassiev's style, the way in the manner in which he goes about fighting in the ring, it really is more, I don't want to call him tailor-made because he wasn't a tailor-made fighter for Usyk, but it's a style that's a lot more favorable than that of a Tony Bellew, you see. Tony Bellew is someone that he doesn't really have a defined style. Contrary to popular belief, he doesn't have a defined style. Gassiev is someone who likes to do the majority of his work on the inside. He's someone that, yes, he has a good jab. He knows how to jab on the inside, but his sole goal is to get in there and to hurt you. And if you're someone like a Usyk who punches from different angles, can move, can box really, really well, has respectable power, and just knows how to maintain and knows how to execute and maintain a very high work rate round after round after round, he's the kind of fighter that if you put him in there with certain styles, he's going to be constantly resetting. And a lot of what he does will be offset for the majority of the fight. And that's what happened against Usyk, and he was thoroughly beaten up every single round. And I think that performance from Usyk in that fight was probably one of the most well thought out and just intelligent performances I've seen in boxing in a couple of years now. It was a very, very, very good performance from Usyk. Because he made Gassiev look like a ordinary fighter when Gassiev is everything but an ordinary fighter. He's one of the best fighters in the weight class, the best fighter outside Usyk in the weight class, in that tournament at least. So there's that. But what Bellew, one thing I learned about Bellew, because he's been somebody that I've studied his career a lot. Early on in his career, he's one of the rare fighters. He's one of the rare fighters in boxing that with time he has actually gotten better. His style has gotten better. As a fighter, his performances have gotten better. And there's only a handful of guys that you can really say that for that do that. Bernard Hopkins was a guy that did that. And a lot of heavyweights tend to do that. But Bellew is one of the rare fighters in boxing who is a late bloomer, who actually, you could say right now, believe it or not, the last 3 or 4 years of his career up until now, these have been his prime years of his career. Absolutely. These have been the prime years of his career. And you don't really say that about guys who are 33, 34, 35 years old unless they're heavyweights, because heavyweights definitely mature. So a lot of my heavyweights can age that way. But you don't really say that with guys who fight below heavyweight. But he's one of the very rare guys we can say that for. So contrary to popular belief, Tony Bellew is someone that I would say right now is in the prime of his career. And on top of that, he's someone that, is coming in with a lot of momentum. The last 4 fights of his career, which have ultimately been the high point of his career, he's gotten stoppage victories. We're talking about the guys he beat. There was the Lalongu Mukabu fight at Goodison Park where he got stopped and knocked on his ass early in the fight. Got up, stopped Mukabu. It was a dream fight on his dream night to win the world title at Goodison Park. Tough fight. We'll get into why that was an underrated win later on. BJ Flores, not the best fighter in the world, but BJ Flores is a name, a decent opponent, and a guy that nobody really beat and embarrassed BJ Flores the way Bellew did, right? So you gotta give him credit for that, for beating him the way nobody's beaten him before. Then he fought David Haye, a guy that had definitely is not the prime David Haye, but this is a guy that nobody gave Bellew a chance against David Haye in the first fight. People were saying Bellew's going to get hospitalized, he's going to get hurt, and he goes in there and he stops David Haye. And then when he stopped him, they say, "Oh well, Haye had the injury, Haye had this, Haye had that." Then he fights for the second time, and he destroys David Haye more emphatically than he did the first time. And David Haye was not injured in the second fight, so he has become a much better fighter with time. And I think a fight between him and Usyk would be actually a better fight than Usyk and Garcia because of his style. Because Bellew, he knows how to fight on the inside. He knows how to fight on the outside. He knows how to fight from mid-range. He's not a very fast fighter, but one thing he does, 2 things he has going for him is he has what I call in boxing. He has intelligent feet, meaning that he knows where to be in the ring, and he has a good sense of positioning. And if you're not a fast fighter, if you're not someone who's Manny Pacquiao, or you're not someone who's like a Josh Kelly, a Terrence Crawford, one of these fighters with like really good foot speed, if you're not one of those kinds of fighters, then it's your job to have a good understanding of positioning, because you can't get away with as much as those guys that had the speed. And that's why he was able to defeat David Haye in such emphatic fashion in the second fight, because as time has went on, Bellew has gotten more intelligent about boxing. His boxing brain is very underrated. And that's why I think he would have a good chance against Usyk. Now, I don't think he's going to beat Usyk. I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to beat Usyk. I'm going to pick against him if they fight. But I'm going to go on record right now and say if they fight, not only do I think it'll be a more competitive fight and a more entertaining fight, but I also think that he is a live dog in that fight. Because Bellew is one of them guys, man, like he doesn't have the best speed. He's not the hardest hitter in the world. But like I said, man, like I say many times, man, like 2 things I say many times. Once you bake a cake, it's a damn cake. And really, the only guy that's like decisively and emphatically destroyed and beat Bellew his whole career was Adonis Stevenson. And I think if you know anything about boxing, me and you could both agree that Adonis Stevenson is a world-class fighter. Especially when Bellew was fighting him. When Bellew was fighting, that was when Adonis Stevenson was really Adonis Stevenson. And then you got to also factor in that Bellew really wasn't fighting at his best weight. Like, he was a weight drain, light heavyweight. Go look at him. He was a stick. He was having a hard time making the weight. So, he should have made the light heavyweight move earlier, the move to cruiserweight earlier in his career. And ever since then, nobody's beat him. Nobody's beat him ever since he moved to cruiserweight. He's undefeated at cruiserweight. He's 8-0 with 6 knockouts cruiserweight, and He's beaten the likes of BJ Flores and most notably Lalongu Makabu, who a lot of people say like with Makabu, they said that I don't think he really gets the credit he deserves for that win because Makabu is someone that he's beaten other. He beat a guy that Usyk also beat, but he beat him earlier. He beat the boxer Mchunu from Africa, another tough fighter. He fought Glenn Johnson. I know people say, well, a lot of guys are beating Glenn Johnson, but he beat Glenn Johnson in a way where that only Bernard Hopkins has beat Glenn Johnson. And you see what I'm saying? Like, Glenn Johnson has fought some of the most notable names in boxing. He's still fighting notable names in boxing to this day. To this day, he's still fighting some very notable names in boxing. And he's had over 70 fights in the professional ranks. And the only guy that had stopped him before Makabu was Bernard Hopkins. And Bernard Hopkins, and this is Bernard Hopkins in '97 when he had the flat top and all that stuff. So that just shows you the durability of Glenn Johnson and how hard it is to really get him out of there. And Makabu was able to do that. So Bellew was fighting a very dangerous fighter in Makabu. People want to say, oh, yeah, well, he fought in his hometown. He fought at Goodison Park. I actually think there was more pressure on him to win that fight at Goodison Park because it was a fight he always dreamed of. The way the first couple rounds played out, he got stopped on the canvas. He could have very easily have folded in that fight, and it could have been a very horrific night for Tony Bellew. But I think he showed why he's one of the best fighters in the weight class that night by getting out the canvas and stopping one of the most dangerous fighters in the division in Makabu. But he doesn't really get the credit he deserves for that one because people really aren't well schooled on Makabu in his career. So that's that. But Usyk should beat him, but it's going to be a fight where I think, Usyk is the kind of fighter where if you're someone that, and Bellew is someone that does this, if you're someone who has intelligent feet and understands positioning, he's someone that you could lure into exchanges. He's someone that you could counter punch, and I think Bellew's money punches in that fight would be a left hook. I think if he's going to beat Usyk, it's gonna be via knockout, and it'll be via a left hook. And I think he has enough understanding of positioning to find that shot. It's just a matter of if he'll find it or not. So it's a good fight. It's an interesting fight. It's a fight that there is some history to be made there. You can either have Usyk become the first undisputed cruiserweight champion to defend the titles because neither Holyfield nor O'Neal Bell did that, or you could have Tony Bellew become the first ever British undisputed cruiserweight champion of all time. And that's not a small accomplishment on its own. He'd be making history there himself. So I like the fight. I think style-wise it's a good fight. Usyk wants to fight. Bellew wants to fight. It's a fight that in the UK, as we all know, Bellew has turned himself over time into one of the bigger stars in the UK. He's a ticket seller in the UK. He sold out the O2 twice. He sold out Goodison Park, his hometown. So he's a headlining fighter there. And Usyk has showed no qualms about going to somebody's backyard and beating the daylights out of him, as he did with Gassiev, the finals in Russia. He beat Gassiev in his own hometown and reduced him into an ordinary fighter, which he's anything but. So I'm all for it, man. Bellew has shown himself to be, in my opinion, the biggest overachiever in boxing because he was not supposed to be here. He was not supposed to be one of the biggest box office stars in the UK. If you go back and you go watch his earlier fights in his career when he was fighting like Nathan Cleverly, even when he fought like lesser known opponents, he was not this great fighter. He was not this outstanding fighter. There was really nothing special about him, to be honest with you. But over time he's gotten better and he's began to, just understand himself more in that ring. And I think when you're a fighter, the more you understand yourself, the better you're gonna fight in the ring. Because like Evander Holyfield says to me all the time, you gotta fight a fight that works for you. And the older he's gotten, the more he's learned how to fight a fight that works for him. And I think if he fights Usyk, that would be the ultimate test to see if he can fight that fight that works for him in a fight for undisputed. And this would be the ultimate test to see like how good really is Tony Bellew, because a lot of people out there don't want to give him credit for the David Haye wins because they think David Haye was old and he sucked. But they want to say that before the fight. And with Bellew, this would be his chance to really like put that final stamp on his career. Like if he's able to beat Usyk, he could just go out on a high, and he would leave boxing, and he would go from a domestic level scouser, scouse fighter that really was looked at, and he really was early in his career. Go look back early in his career. Tony Bellew's skill set, he was a C-class fighter early in his career. No doubt about it, C-class fighter. He has since then gotten better, and I would say he's now more of a B plus, B fighter. I wouldn't call him an A fighter yet. He's not an A fighter. I think he's got A-level intelligence, but he don't got the A-level skill set. Yeah, he's gotten better with time, and he's elevated himself in boxing. But this would be a chance to put that final stamp on your career. And I would say right now, if he's able to go in there and defeat Oleksandr Usyk, I mean, this might sound delusional, but he has you know how to look at him as probably like a guy who is a Hall of Famer, a Hall of Famer in boxing, because then you're talking about him beating the likes of David Haye twice, Isaac Chilemba, Nathan Cleverly, Malonga Mukabu, BJ Flores, and then to add Usyk on your resume, a guy who I would consider right now to be the pound-for-pound king of boxing, or at least, even if you don't think he's a pound-for-pound king of boxing, he probably has as a legitimate claim to that throne as anybody in boxing. And I went through that in my other video, so I don't need to rehash that here. But this fight just makes so much sense to make. And if Eddie Hearn is saying November the 10th, I say make the damn fight happen. Pay Usyk whatever you got to pay Usyk. Pay Bellew whatever you got to pay Bellew. And make the fight happen. Because I really do think on paper, it's style-wise, believe it or not, I think it's a more entertaining fight and it's a more competitive fight than Gassiev, because Gassiev is a guy that really only knows how to lure you to exchanges if he's landing punches, but his understanding of positioning in the ring isn't as good as Bellew's, and because it's not as good as Bellew's, I think that's why you'll see more exchanges in the fight with Usyk and Bellew. You'll see Bellew. I see Bellew as more of a live dog in that fight just because of his understanding of positioning and just the momentum. A lot of times in boxing, it's timing. Like a lot of times with fighters is like, okay, I'm fighting this guy now. He might be good, but well, what has he done in his last 5 fights? And a lot of times things come down to momentum. You know, my boy Paul's sitting over there. You know, he has this big thing about momentum and how you have your rhythm and stuff. And boxing, that stuff is very true. Bellew in his last 5 fights. I don't know if I know he has at least 4 stoppage victories in the last 5 fights. He might have 5 stoppage victories, but I know for a fact he stopped his opponents in his last 4 of his last 5 fights. At least he stopped his opponents, and those opponents include David Haye twice, BJ Flores, and Mukabu. So he's a very confident fighter. That's why he can go on Sky Sports. He can go on all these different news networks, and he can say things that to boxing fans sound delusional, but he really believes these things. He really believes these things, and that's why he's gotten as far as he's gotten in his career. Because he believes in himself. And I honestly, I'll leave it at this. I think it's a fantastic fight. I think I would like to see Usyk have the chance to try to make history, and really until he beats Bellew, he's cleaned out the division because he beat all the champions in the tournament, and Bellew hasn't fought at cruiserweight since middle of 2016. But if he really beats Bellew, then he will have literally cleaned out cruiserweight. There's literally not one name that you could throw out there top level that he hasn't beaten. He's beaten them all. He's beaten them all if he beats Bellew. So make the damn fight happen. I'm with it. I know Eddie Hearn will be with it. Just hopefully all parties involved can get on the same page. Make the fight happen. And I think a lot of boxing fans would be in for a big surprise, because I think it would just be a more... I don't think Bellew's going to win. I still got Usyk winning via unanimous decision, but I think it's a lot more competitive than Usyk Gassiev. And I even see... I wouldn't be surprised at the least if Bellew hurts Usyk at all in that fight. I see him hurting Usyk in that fight if he can land the right shot. Because one thing about him that I don't think people talk about is like at heavyweight he's not really a big puncher because he fought Haye twice. He didn't prove himself to be a massive puncher at the weight, even though he got 2 stoppage victories. He wasn't like this big one punch knockout artist. And then at light heavyweight he wasn't like this massive knockout artist because he was weight trained most like a lot of times at light heavyweight. But at cruiserweight that's his optimal weight. And he's a strong fighter at the weight, and he's a live dog in that fight. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I've been rambling for 19 minutes here. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Tony Bellew, Oleksandr Usyk. Am I on to something here, or is this just me like being a Bellew fan thinking that he has a chance here? Let me know in the comments down below what you think about Usyk versus Bellew, and if it's a competitive fight, and if you like to see it, because I like to see it. And leave your comments down below. Follow True School Sports on Instagram at True School Sports. And like I say in every single video, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just kidding from dating it. So until next time, take care, guys.